a woman has her cycle, and for 7 days following it, the status change should be that the couple hits pause on the physical, intimate dimension of their relationship. So all of a sudden, hands off. Which means what? We're still sharing a home. We're still sharing bills. We're still doing carpools or calendars and planning whatever chaos we have coming up. But we're going to do all of that with our hands off, meaning that physical dimension of our relationship is now on a pause. Why? Not because you're mad or angry or upset or tired or stressed or overworked or overwhelmed or getting back or any of the normal human reasons why people would pull away from each other, which is 100% normal. God says, no. Not because of those things, because I'm telling you, this is my suggestion for a happy Jewish intimate life. Push pause, not because of your mood and your stress and all the other factors, because me, the third partner, is telling you this is a good time for it. And what occurs, what's the status change? After a woman counts this time period, she immerses in the mikveh by preparing, she goes under the water, and now, what happens when she comes out of the water? What's the renewal or the rebirth or she's hitting, we said she hit pause on the physical relationship, now she's hitting play. So when she comes back from the mikveh, that physical dimension, which by the way, is the dimension in a relationship that's unique to all others. Because we know you have all sorts of friends and family and relatives and neighbors that you do all sorts of interesting things with. You talk, you cook, you run, you work out, you exercise, you shop, you talk about politics, you don't talk about politics. But what's unique of your relationship with your spouse is it has this dynamic, this energy that has a sexual dimension that isn't with everybody else in your life. But God says, no. It's on play all the time. This is not something that everyone's going to cherish, appreciate, love, and enjoy. And there's going to be the natural order of things is there's going to be a pulling away, an ebb and a flow. But don't let it be because of you and your mood. Let it be because of me and my directions here. So what ends up happening, and this is a very fascinating thing, on a psychological level, God's like, listen, I'm your programmer. You know, like your iPhone, if you're like me, you didn't read the instructions that it came with. That thick book that came in 94 languages and had all the details of how to use all the apps. Don't tell anyone. I didn't read it. I don't know what it says in there, but I know how to work a few things, and probably 90% of the features on my phone I don't know how to use. Yeah, it might be unique, but God says, listen, the guidebook for life, we have free choice. We could choose to read it, we could choose not to read it, but every part of our life, God gives us direction how it's best used. So how does human nature work? Human nature works that if I have something all the time, and if something's always available, and if something's always there, not because I'm a bad person, just because I'm human, I don't appreciate it, I take it for granted. So I'll give you the silliest example I could think of. I do carpool for 2 hours every morning, 3 different schools in Atlanta traffic. Lots of fun. I take a water bottle with me, and sometimes I drink the whole thing, sometimes I take a sip, sometimes I don't even touch it. Depends on the day. But I'm telling you, if I forget to take the water bottle with me, only thing I'm thinking about is, am I stopping at Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or the gas station? Where am I stopping because I need water because I'm so thirsty and I still have another hour in the car? Now, is that because I'm strange? No, it's because I'm a human. And why is it a gift? Because if we were always satisfied with everything and we wouldn't have the technology and the advancement we have, we always want to improve. But then when it comes to human relationships, it presents a little challenge, because if I only really want something, or I only really appreciate it, or I only really enjoy it when I know I'm not going to have it, or all those cliches, absence makes the heart grow fonder, or if you can't have something, you want it. Hashem's like, no, I'm the programmer here. This is how I made human beings, and I'm giving you this system. Why? So here's the question. Why does God care? It's my own life. It's my own personal business. And how is it making the world a better place? So if I volunteer and if I contribute and if I donate, it's a mitzvah. I'm being a good person. But if me and my husband are very excited or very interested or very happy or very disconnected or very connected, what does it matter to the world? What does it matter? Why is it a mitzvah? And as I hope everyone got, it's not just any mitzvah. It's literally the most central mitzvah to Jewish community and life. Why? Why? So there's many ways we could answer it, but because we don't have like all the time in the world, I'll tell you very, very briefly. You have, at the center of a Jewish community, you have this idea of a mikveh, and I'll give you an example. Anyone here ever have this situation where your kid comes home from school with like a science project? Which means who has a science project? Not your kid. Not your kid. I'm like, Erev Pesach, you're giving me a science project? Like, I'm going to complain. Right? Because who's buying the materials and who's researching and who's saying, really, it's not a good idea to dissect the frog in our kitchen. Let's pick a different, right? Okay, so my daughter comes home with a science project. Not a big deal. This one. It was called Go Green, was the unit in science they were doing, and everybody had to bring a physical, diorama or box to show the other students how we can be better stewards of our environment and how we could take care of our world, and the environment around us. Okay, so my daughter comes up with a little plan. She has a big boot box she puts in a little bowl, and she builds around it a little Lake Lanier. So what is it? It's little bridges and docks with homes made out of clay and Play-Doh and Lego and all the good stuff. We bring it to school. I'm a New York driver. It wasn't so simple. There were issues. But okay, we rebuilt in the parking lot. We're good. Brings it into school, and she fills the basin with water, and she shows her class, this is Lake Lanier. I bought this home on it. I own it. There's no mortgage. And she takes out of her pocket a little bit of red dye, food coloring, right? Puts a few drops in the water. And it's not just red by her house, it's actually pink everywhere. So everyone's like, oh. So she says, listen, it's my house. I own it. It's my business what goes on here. It doesn't affect anyone else. And this is my property. But actually, when she puts those drops in, what happens? It's pink everywhere. Then what happens? She takes out of her other pocket a little bit of chlorine, from the pool, a cleaning agent, a cleansing agent, puts a few drops just in her water, just in her little basin. And what happens? It cleans up the whole water. So what does she show the class? What goes on in my personal home or my business, I own it, it's no one else's, area to mix in, actually affects everybody. So, yay, she got an A on the project, but more importantly, what's the lesson? If we think that our personal business, what goes on in my bedroom, is my business, we are so mistaken. Because when God created the world, the intention was that we make the world a dwelling place for God. We bring heaven down to earth. Now that sounds like a huge job, right? So what do we have to do? I don't know, save the rainforest, save the whales, do a big project, save things. No. God's intention was the micro affects the macro. Every single home, every relationship, every husband and wife, every unit, every family, and even if there isn't a husband and a wife, it's still relationships between people. If they're good and they're healthy and they're wholesome and they're passionate and they're loving and they're warm, you think it doesn't affect everyone, but you're actually causing a cosmic, universal light to shine out in the world, and you might not be able to see it, but it doesn't make it less real. So how many of you said you had Russian ancestry? Yeah, quite a few. Raise your hand if Russian, Ukrainian, Odessa. I know we had a few. USSR, former white Russia, yeah? Okay, you don't have to be from Russia to understand this little small idea that when communism was, not everyone got the memo that communism fell, just so you know, but when it was strong, before it actually came down, what was the deal? The deal was no other religion or practice was acceptable except for communism, and every teacher in every class, no matter what their subject was, math, science, whatever, had to teach communist doctrine and inculcate the students with these ideas. So teachers in her classroom in Russia, and she looks at all her students and she says, does everybody see the desk? Students look and they say, yeah. So she says, that's because it exists. So she points, does everyone see the bookshelves? Again, the students say yes, because it exists. And she keeps going around the room. You see the clock, the window, And every time she points to something, she asks the same question, do you see it? And when the students say yes, she says that's because it exists. And finally, she gets to the highlight of her lesson, her punchline. She says, does anybody in this room see God? So they're all looking at each other like, right? So that's because he doesn't exist. So the class is quiet, right? She made a big impact until Yankel in the back of the room raises his hand and he's like, does anybody here see the teacher's brain? Why? Because if we don't see it, it doesn't exist? That's a ridiculous way to live. Now, on one hand, the teacher is making a good point. If you can experience something with your five senses, you see it, you smell it, you touch it, but what really makes us feel really good and really loved and really appreciated, you may not be able to see with your eyes. Support, what does it look like? Empathy, what does it look like? Love, what does it look like? Partnership, friendship, assist, like when someone's there for you, what does that look like? And the flip side, because we live in a crazy social media world, I could present an image that looks so like all of the above, loving and warm and happy and healthy and wholesome, and you can have no idea that behind that picture, oh my gosh, the chaos. Silly example, when I think it was maybe my 7th son was born, we always send out a Shana Tova card, and I was like, oh my gosh, a baby was just born, and I can't send out last year's Shana Tova picture because there's a new kid in the family. We're not gonna like add him in, like, yes, new delivery, you know, like, but there's like a floating member on the side. I was like, we need to take a picture. So I tell my husband, I'm like, oh my gosh, the Shana Tova cards need to go out because we're on campus and alumni every year, a quarter of the people we know graduate and leave. So if we don't keep in touch, like, it's important. So even though it's important, I'm like, you know, postpartum, I don't know my own name, but it's important. So I tell my husband, I'm like, okay, I have a student who's a photographer. When the kids come home from school today, just make sure you're home. We're just going to take a picture literally on the front steps and whatever. We'll filter, we'll do a little, like, So I had from the prior year outfits that all matched all my kids. From one of the stores, you know, this fancy European store, thank God it went out of business, but it was a problem. But at the end of every season, I would buy, you know, they had the matching boy, girl, big, small, so it was all different, but all the same fabric. So it was very cool. And I would buy the kids, you know, at the end of the season, like one matching thing. Okay, but this is a year later. So my daughter's dress is not covering her this. And my other one, they grow in a year. What a kid grows, it's insanity. The kid's sweater is this. My other son was like, I'm not wearing a yellow and purple sweater. Like, I'm already 11. You know, everyone was protesting. Nothing fit. And I'm like, guys, we all have it, all's fine. I put on a jacket over whatever was going on that I didn't want to acknowledge. And I was like, we sat on the steps, and I was like, this is what we're going to do. Instead of a picture head to toe, everyone's going to sit on a different step, and we're going to face that way. No one's going to see that you're barefoot, that you're in sandals, that you're in boots, that your pants that you wore to school were pajama pants. No, like, because mom didn't get you. You're laughing, right? You can cry. So we're all sitting on the front steps, so like this, and the photographer's there. I'm like, everyone put your shoulder, smile at Jamie. Everyone smiles, Jamie gets a picture, and I send it out. You know, I didn't even look. I'm just like, Mazel Tov, Rosh Hashanah, Happy New Year. I send it out. It's like a 2-week baby. I don't even know. And I was so shocked because people are like, oh my gosh, and you have it together, and you're so coordinated, and everyone's matching. And I'm like, no, I should have had the photographer take a picture on the other side of the steps. You wouldn't. It wasn't a different. This girl, her underwear was showing. This one, her like the pants, you saw a bunch of kids close enough together. It looked like the coordinated dream family, whatever, I don't even know what, and that's not what was going on. Why am I saying that? Because I have the ability to, thank God, Hashem was nice, it came out, it looked, I could project I have it all together. Not only I didn't, we all were laughing when we saw it, because it's like, oh, you didn't know, her toe was bleeding, I'm like, I'll put a Band-Aid on after the thing, one, don't move, you know, like it was chaos, right? So why am I saying that? Because we have the ability to project what isn't there, but we also have the ability to know that everyone could think one thing, and I know something else. Mostly in relation to relationships, that's where the biggest challenge lies, because your career, the bank will tell you what your bank account is, and your house, you know what it's worth. Meaning a lot of things in life, it's very specific. But when it comes to the value of a relationship, the temperature of a relationship, the energy of a relationship, that's where we get very confused. So what's the idea? Meaning when I say confused, where am I putting my energy? Most of us do the same thing. You're talking to someone in your home and it's heated. What do you mean? And I told you, and you never let me know. And there's a ring at the doorbell. And you answer the door. Does that not happen in Phoenix? A phone call. Someone, I don't know, do people, is it like, no one's at the door ever. Fine. Someone's on the phone, but you don't pick up the phone. You just text, right? It's, okay, a human being that isn't part of your family who you're having this big fight with shows up and you're like, hi, how are you? It's so nice to see you. 10 seconds ago, you were in a heated argument and it wasn't pleasant and you didn't have you're able to flip that switch and put on such a pleasant, nice, calm demeanor for that stranger or neighbor or someone you don't know so well, but your own family. They're the ones that benefit the full brunt of all your wrath and expression. Like, is that where we feel I'm going to express myself and you shall suffer the consequences because I'm going to be real to me? Or what is Hashem trying to tell us with the fact that a mikveh is at the center of a community? Even if you can't use the mikveh, even if you're past that time of your life, there isn't a spouse, it's not, the message is important to every member of the community. of all the things that are valuable in life, of all the things that are important, and education is important, and kosher food is important, and community centers are important, there's nothing more important in God's eyes than healthy, happy, loving, passionate relationships. And how do we know that? Because the mikveh is at the center. And what does the mikveh teach us? That even something as physical as a physical relationship, Hashem says, listen, I'm gonna give you a gift, which is a program of how to maintain energy and enthusiasm in a relationship where the natural order of things is if something's always available and something's always there, it's not like I don't appreciate the water when it's there, but I just don't really need it. Or I love you and you're great and you're wonderful, but like, see you next week. So Hashem says, no, that's not enough for the relationships I want to have in this world. This world needs light and love and happiness. It has to be that there's a yearning. It has to be that there's a desire. It has to be that there's a connection. It has to be that intimacy is not just something that, in the beginning, it's natural and it's healthy and it's normal and wow. And whatever the normal progression of things is, as time goes on, everyone gets busy and distracted and preoccupied with other things. And you know what? I really love you, but it's not that exciting. I've been there, done that 200 million times. We're good. We're fine. Hashem says, no. That may be the way that humanity is designed, but really the Jewish perspective on human sexuality is completely different. Because if we go back to the beginning, when I say human sexuality, if you ask anyone what's the purpose, we all understand that human beings were created as sexual beings. What's the purpose? So you could say, well, scientifically, there's a reproductive element and, human beings need to get together so there'll be a perpetuation of the species and the species will continue. Okay. But chipmunks need to do that also, so how sophisticated and how romantic is that, right? Or you have the perception, which many Jewish members of our tribe have, that our viewpoint is the same as other religions. Because you hear all the time Judeo-Christian values, it's like one shalom pot and all the values are bubbling up together. No, what's most religious perspectives? And I'll tell you honestly, I had no idea. I was invited to be on a panel. It was during Sexual Awareness Weekend at Emory, and they asked me, could I be on a panel where the students could ask people from different faiths about how the faith views this human experience. So I said, sure, because when else am I going to have all these Jewish students learning about Judaism, right? I was not surprised by even one question that came in from any student, but I was shocked, to the point where I had to, keep my face, very neutral, because I was like, what? From all the panelists, there was Christian and Muslim and Catholic and Buddhist and Hindu and Taoist and religions I never even knew. I'm like, what religion is that? Whatever. The answers that the panelists gave to the students was so different from what I knew about Judaism that I was so taken aback. Wow, I didn't even realize that we have such a unique, different perspective, because what are most religious viewpoints? That this whole part of human life, it's kind of a necessary evil. We understand there's biology, we understand there's science, we understand there needs to be a perpetuation of the species, we get that. But really, it's not so wholesome and healthy and holy and kosher and pick your adjective. It's a little bit naughty, dirty, yicky, yuck, feh, pick your word. They weren't the words they said, but it was all these different words that they use that are not positive words. And, okay, we can't get away from it, so someone's got to do it. But you know what? If you really want to be godly, and you really want to be holy, and you really want to be spiritual, and you really want to be divine, in most faiths, you're not doing that. You're celibate, whether you're a pope or a monk or a nun or all these different higher-ups. The regular people we understand, but not if you're really holy. And Judaism actually says the opposite. You couldn't be a king or a prophet or a Kohen if you didn't have a wife. If you didn't have a healthy family life, we're a little bit suspicious and you're not fit to serve. The opposite is true in Judaism. Why? Because the Jewish perspective, unlike there's just science, or there's a religious perspective, or even what's our culture? Meaning when I say our culture, I know I live in Atlanta and everyone here is in Phoenix. We see the same billboards and music and books, and the whole media around us tells us one message, which is what? I don't know what it says over here. I'll keep it kosher. But if I had to sum it up in one advertising campaign, I would say probably Nike got it right. Just do it. It doesn't matter where, what, who, when. At least on college campuses, our youth, maybe not their parents or grandparents, but our youth are given the message, explore, experiment, experience, just do whatever, and you'll see whatever and whatever. That's right. I said it in so many words, so articulate. Yeah, just knock yourself out, literally or figuratively or in between. Okay, what's the Jewish perspective? I know, you guys are looking at me horrified. I promise you I'm not making this up. Come and visit me. I'm not making this up. But really, what's the Jewish perspective? The Jewish perspective is none of the above. Yes, we understand there's science, we understand there's a society, we understand there's other religions, but the Jewish perspective on this whole issue is Bereshis bara. Hashem created human beings. The very first human being that Hashem created, very strange verse. It says God created a human. Adam was this human's name, a human, not Adam, the man human, a human. Zachar u'nekeva bara otam. Male and female, he created them. So even if you're not a literature or grammar or anyone expert, it's like, what? God created a human, which is singular. Male and female, he created them, is plural. If you had to draw a stick figure, what would you draw? 1, 2, a mixture, a group. What was this being? So shockingly, all the commentaries agree. That's the shocking part. They never agree with us. They never agree. They all agree. This first being was androgynous. It was both. It had male and female in one. But now what happens? That's interesting. That's kind of weird, right? So there's human beings. They are male, female, dynamic, energy, whatever. And Hashem says, welcome to the garden. Guess what? All the things I created, the sun, the moon, the grass, the fish, the animals, you're the only creature that has the gift and ability to take what you're thinking and what you're feeling and verbalize it through words and communicate it to another. So because you have that gift and the other creatures here don't, I want you to name all the animals. Okay, so the first creature, male, female. Okay, Mr. Mrs. Ladybug, Mr. Mrs. Peacock, Mr. Mrs. Rhinoceros, Mr. Mrs. Cockroach, all done, and comes before God and says, yo, not a direct quote, but like, hello, Hashem. All the creatures, there's like a Mr. and Mrs. Duck. He has a brown neck, she has a green neck, other way around. Why, what's up with me? Why am I? So Hashem says, aha. Hashem, this is all, by the way, you're looking at me like I'm telling you, this is all, check it out. Bible 101 in your local Motel 6 drawer. If you're in the South, it's there, just check it out. Hashem says, okay, now that you notice that you're a combined being, I'm going to separate you. And they're separated, male and female. And now they stand up, and what does Hashem tell them? Again, welcome, right? Now that there's a male and female. And by the way, they look different, their programming's different, their design's different. And if you took a lot of women's studies classes, and some professors told you it's just on the outside we look different, inside it's everything the same, please don't sign up for that. It's not true. What's the truth? The truth is different functions, similar humanity, but with different strengths and different means of contributing. So now what does Hashem say to these two individuals? Now that you're separated, I would like you to cleave to one another, become one, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth. These are all direct psukim. I'm just saying them in modern English with sign language, right? So what's the idea? They come, Hashem says, come together and create a family. Really, who cares? Garden of Eden, how many thousands of years ago, like it's relevant to me? It's 2020. Why should I care that Adam and Eve started out together, then they were separated, and then they were told to get back together and make kids? I'm busy, I got things to do. Like, why should it matter? So the Kabbalah say, you know why it matters? Because this story is not just a story of Garden of Eden. It's relevant to each and every one of us because it's each and every one of our stories. Now, it's not the story of our body. Our body was a smaller, maybe cuter, maybe we got cuter later, whatever version of ourselves that we came into this world. So it's not the story of our bodies. We weren't attached and separated. But Kabbalah teaches us it's actually the story of our soul, our neshama. That life force, that energy, that vivifying force inside of me before it came down into the little baby version body. Up in heaven, there was a male and female dynamic that was attached and connected and in love and best friends. Up in heaven before it ever came down here on planet Earth, they did, I don't really know what they did, but whatever best friends do up in heaven, they basked in each other's rays and glow. They enjoyed whatever. They were one. They loved this energy and what happens? A little baby boy is born, gets its part. Now I'm saying part, but it's not pieces, it's an energy. So we're like looking at like black and white cookies. It's not a cookie. Energy, fire, it's a dynamic that's giving life to this baby boy. But then, whether it's a year before, later, after, a different continent, wherever it is, a baby girl gets this energy. But because these souls were familiar and attached and connected before they ever came down here, Kabbalah says from the moment they're born, it's totally subconscious. But as they mature and as they develop, and everyone develops differently, so some people at 12, some people at 22, some people at 42, everybody's going to mature at a different rate. At some point, people kind of say, there's something in here, meaning I kind of know who I am, I'm kind of learning about myself, I'm educating myself, I'm learning my career, but there's some part of me that's looking and searching, and there's a desire and a yearning and a need to connect with another that's outside of me, that's different than me, that's very different from me, But also there's something familiar and some connection that I can't really explain. And if someone will ask me, how did you know? What will I say? I don't know what to tell you. I just knew. If you know what I'm talking about. Why do you know? Your soul knows and recognizes its best friend from up in heaven. So what does this have to do with anything? Kabbalah teaches, where does this energy come from? That human beings experience, desire, yearning, pleasure, connection, I want to, I need to. Where does it come from? So Kabbalah and Jewish tradition doesn't say it's because of hormones or it's because we have to reproduce and there's a biological clock that's ticking. That may also be true, but it's not the whole truth. What's the whole truth? That yearning, that connection, that desire comes from the holiest part inside of us, our soul, our neshama. Because it was connected on high, it wants to reconnect down here on earth. So what does Hashem do? Brilliant plan. Your bodies, you're separate individuals, you're unique beings, but your souls want to connect. But how do souls connect if they're trapped or gifted to be in bodies? So Hashem says through bodies. But the pleasure that's felt through this connection is not meant to just be physical, because it's so much more than physical. It's two bodies, but they're really essentially collecting two hearts, two souls, and two minds who had a connection before they even came down to planet Earth. So what does Kabbalah teach us? The origin of human intimacy and connection comes from the holiest, most godly and beautiful place inside of us. It's called our neshama. And if we prioritize that in our actual, real, daily grind lives by saying, this is not a side, or this is not a perk, or this is not a cherry on top. This is actually how two people become one on a spiritual level. And this is actually practically, even though it doesn't sound practical, how we bring godliness and heaven and spirituality down into our world by knowing that this isn't just physical. Why is it a mitzvah? Because the actual translation of mitzvah doesn't mean a good deed. It means tzavta, it's a connection. What are we connecting? Two neshamas to one another. Two neshamas who are a part of Hashem. Achelek elokat says we are actually a piece apart. Not like related, distant blood relatives. A piece of God inside of us. So down here in this world, the way Judaism views it, it's the opposite. It's the most holy, godly, incredible experience. And why there's so much pleasure involved is because there's nothing more incredible than someone being able to connect outside of themselves with another completely different, from a completely different planet, literally, right? Mars, Venus, Malchus, whatever planets you want to say we come from, to actually be able to connect in this world, not just mentally, and not just emotionally, and not just spiritually, but physically, but it's all one holistic thing, because that was God's intention, and that's when we're actually most godlike. So Hashem says the mikveh is at the center of a community to remind everyone in that community, whether you could use the mikveh or not, that there's nothing more valuable in God's eyes than healthy, happy homes and connections and relationships where you understand it's not just physical, it's not just do me a favor and be nice and be kind and friendly, but even our physical interactions and our physical connection is literally a spark of God here in this world. And that's actually why, and I'll just close with this, even though so we could take questions. I'm very punctual. Even though, as I'm sure you know, any mitzvah in the Torah, Passover's coming up, Shabbat's coming up, there's tractates and paragraphs and books of details of how one would do all the details of it. So it's very fascinating that when it comes to this mitzvah, so anyone who wants to know more about how to actually observe the mitzvah, how do you count, how do you prepare, how does the separation start and end, you have an incredible Rebbetzin. She will learn one-on-one with you all the details of how this actual mitzvah is practiced. But what's fascinating is when it comes to actual intimacy, Judaism has very little to say. Shabbat, 249 chapters of details. Passover, forget it. You got books full of what and what not. When it comes to actual physical connection, what does the Torah say? A few, and I'm not going to get, unless anyone wants specifics, literally the guidelines are that whatever physical pleasure is experienced with this couple, it should be that I'm experiencing this other human being as a whole human being. Meaning, if I'm not present, if I'm not if I'm a little out of my mind, I'm a lot drunk, if I'm thinking about someone else, if I'm not really present for this experience, Torah says this isn't a good thing to engage in. Why? Because literally all of the instructions, and they're very, very few, that have to do with human intimacy, are to actually foster this connection that it's heart, mind, body, and soul. And if you're not showing up on all planes, think about it. Now for women, we actually take a little more work to be in that mode and that zone. And if we prioritize it, then we know, okay, I need a break, I need time out, I need a nap, I need a babysitter, I need to buy something new, I need to feel like a mensch. But if it's not a priority, it's gonna be 20 years till I see you again, because I'm busy. But if it's a priority, then I say, and then it's a different programming system. You say, hello, the programming is ready to launch, right? I'm making this up. For women, it's like, I'm in the root mood, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed. We have a lot of things that distract us. And you know what? It's fine. It's okay if we understand that. If I prioritize something, I'll make time for it. If I prioritize, I'll figure out a way. What do I need to do to actually get into a zone? And it's fascinating. I had a woman, and I'll just close out with this, she was actually a Harvard fellow. She's a sex therapist by profession, totally secular, although she was Jewish, and she heard about this mitzvah from a client of hers who told her that she was observant and she did this mitzvah. This therapist was fascinated, and she started looking into it and researching and Googling, and she's like, I was blown away because so many of the things that I told women who came to me with dysfunction, and they came to me with issues, and so many things, take time, separate, put it on the calendar, prepare, take a bath, wash yourself, pamper, all the things that her clinical research had told her, that was so crazy to me that for thousands of years, Jewish women had it in their mitzvah bag. Like, so when she told me this, she became religious, literally, because this, if Judaism's so brilliant in this area, let me check it out of this area. And I was actually having a discussion with her, telling her that even if it makes sense and even if it's logical, it's not why we do it. We don't do it because it makes sense. We do it because it's a mitzvah and it connects us to Hashem. Some mitzvahs we logically appreciate. Some mitzvahs we really enjoy. They're fun. Light a menorah, bring light into the world. Some mitzvahs we're like, huh? I should do what? What? Are you kidding? But why would I do that? Because that's the romance of Judaism, when I could do something for you, not just because you told me, not just because I'm your spouse and you asked me, so I'll take out the garbage, We have that element of our relation, but what's romance? When I do something for you, I don't know why you need it. I don't know why it makes you happy. I don't know what it does for you, but I love you, so I'll do it. Guess what, Hashem? There's mitzvahs that I'll do just because I want a connection to my Creator. It's a little beyond my intellect. It's a little past my enjoyment level. So I was explaining that to her. It's a mitzvah that's a chok. We just do it because. And she was like, no. This makes so much sense. This is brilliant. I'm like, but that's not why we do it. She's like, that's why I do it. I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter why we do it. It matters that we do it. So to find out more about this mitzvah, because I didn't give you any of the details, I'm just telling you, like, why is mikveh even a thing? And you're obviously blessed that you have a stunning mikveh a 30-second walk from where we currently are, and you could find out all the details, whether it's relevant to you in your life. It may not be, you may be past that stage. But two interesting facts about mikveh. One, it's retroactive. The blessings that the Zohar says that a woman brings into the world. Very few mitzvahs are we told, if you do it, you're going to get a reward. Most mitzvahs we're told, do it, and there's no comment what we're getting, no chart system. Zohar says this mitzvah, a woman brings down blessing, banei, chaye, and mezonah, 3 areas of life: health, mental, physical, spiritual health; children, family, healthy relationships; and parnasa, being able to pay the bills. Things that universally we all want. It says that's what a woman draws down blessings into her life when she goes to the mikvah. But what if I didn't go? What if I didn't know? What if I didn't have the opportunity? Very unusual. Most mitzvahs, if you miss it, you miss it. You didn't hear the shofar Rosh Hashanah. If I blow a horn for you now, you're hearing a very lousy sounding horn. Right? If you didn't eat matzah at the Seder and you want to eat it in August, I apologize. It's a stale cracker. You're not getting a mitzvah. But the interesting thing about mikvah is the blessings are actually retroactive. That if a woman didn't go before her wedding, she didn't know, didn't think it was for her, whatever the case is, but she immerses, even at 70 years old, she can draw down those blessings, and they affect not just her, but children and grandchildren who may already be there. So it's a very unusual mitzvah that has this incredible power because it's so central. So if you're sitting here and you're thinking it doesn't apply to me, or I can't go, or it's not for me, you have a niece, you have a sister, you have a neighbor, you have a coworker, you have a friend, you have someone you can be the ambassador and share this knowledge with, this gift with. Or it may even be that you can go this one retroactive, awe-inspiring time and bring down those blessings that are waiting in a big bucket to pour down on top of you by opening the channel of this mitzvah and having that flow, literally the flow. So, l'chaim to the blessings.